Welcome to Destiny Movie Night. Tonight we are going to talk about Groundhog Day. We have a guest here. He's also a host of movie nights. And welcome to Joku from the United States.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me.
Cool. And we also discussed with Joe that we've seen this movie before, and then we rewatched it recently. And it is interesting to see how much we also changed regarding to how we saw the movie before. So about the plot, it's an interesting concept that the guy goes to the city and he has this job to do, like the Groundhog's Day, and the groundhog reports the weather, and then he realizes that he basically stuck in the time, so to speak, like living the same day again and again and again. And this brings out many things and many points, and we would like to share as much as possible. And remind you, this is a live discussion, and anyone can ask questions, and we can answer it. So be brave and ask anything about the movie or your process. We are here. So Joe, what can you tell us about the movie or your impressions or anything you want to start?
Yeah, this was actually one of my favorite movies when I was much younger, because I thought it was cool. This guy gets to relive the same day over and over and over and over again. And no matter what he does, he'll always come to the same point. And why I thought that was cool was because, now he gets to do whatever he wants. And no matter what he does, he gets the benefit of keeping all the experiences, all the memories. And he gets to eventually just apply himself and become this awesome guy. And he gets to do this because of that magical situation where his day always resets back to the day before. And I just thought, wow, why can't I have that? Why can't I have those? And so I would always really enjoy watching this movie because everything that he does would be the kind of stuff that I would want to do. Chase the girl, everything in town, be like a god, be able to show off all my talents and, get all the appreciation from the townspeople. And so that really to that part of me back then where, I really wanted something magical to happen for me so that I can then be happy with my life, so that I can become a better person. And what was interesting watching the movie this time around was obviously after walking my process over the past several years, a lot of my perspective has changed. And watching this movie again, it was interesting seeing that young kid in me come back and the memories I had of this film and just how different my relationship is, not only with myself, but with the world around me and how I see everything. It was just really interesting experience. But I'm sure we'll get into a lot of that in this discussion. So how about you? What was your feedback and response watching this first times and now watching it again since Destiny?
Yeah, definitely. Like first time I watched it, I felt also myself stuck in time, so to speak, like the boring job and without money, always the same people, always the same experiences, always the same limits I had within myself. I was not that talkative before, and I was even barely able to look into women's eyes. So I was shy and then suppressive. And then I felt like I am cursed because I cannot go out from this prison, which was actually myself, but I didn't know. So I also wanted to get more time, like living the same day again, like he did, or being able to observe everything, like he was able to pick up the events of the day to learn and then using it for his own advantage. Or for instance, the most coming back point was like when I started to date with girls, and then I felt like I am not good enough. I am awkward. I cannot imitate myself as a man who is wanted by the woman. So I was always adapting myself, like, yeah, I should like stand like this and be serious. And then next time, adopting these kind of things, like I was actually trying to change myself in order to get the woman, and it didn't work, obviously, because I was not myself. And
Yeah.
what I like about this movie is that so much symbolism within this, in regards to all kinds of areas of our life. For instance, dating, for instance, the job, for instance, our own living. So it was so cool to rewatch it after walking the process and the self-forgiveness. I was able to relate that how much I also changed. Like we are actually stuck in time, literally like him in the Groundhog's Day. Even the events are different, but it's always the same. We are always in the same body, the same person we are. So it's interesting to relate. And no matter how much time I watch this movie, I always enjoy the humor and then everything.
Yeah.
The actors, it was really great.
Yeah, definitely. It's very, very relatable, even though the circumstances are, kind of crazy and extraordinary, but you're very normal and everyday issues that everybody kind of has, right? The not wanting to face certain aspects of your job, relationships, or things like that. The difference is for the main character in this movie, everything is repeating on the same day. So when we relate this back to press, when I relate it back to events in my own life, oftentimes I have found that the same kinds of people, or the same kinds of job, or the kinds of pressures I've always been dealing with keep on coming back. And it does feel like I'm stuck and it's the same thing over and over, even if I'm to a different state, or even if I cut ties with all the people, eventually the same kinds of people come back. And I sometimes would wonder, what's going on here? Because it can't be a coincidence. This is too similar to the same events I've had before. So it actually be me. I must be the one that's creating all of this outside of me to deal with, because it never left me. I might have moved to a different, but that doesn't mean I left behind all of the things inside me that I wasn't dealing with. I brought that with me. The only thing that changed was maybe the faces and the places, but these are the same. So when I look at this movie, instead of, like, for us, maybe it takes a few months or a few years for those same patterns and people to come back. For this character, it's one day. Everything comes back. So he gets kind of this extreme version of what we're actually all already facing, which is the point. Everything that we're facing right now is a reflection of what's going on inside of us. That includes who we are at our work, the kind of work we do, the kinds of people in our lives, even where we live. All of that is a reflection of where we are with ourselves. So I thought that was a really cool symbol for what the process is, and how often it seems like we cycle through the same issues until finally, just like the main character, we reach a breakthrough point. And it seems like once we hit that, everything kind of just clears and it doesn't come back to haunt us anymore. And we wonder, wow, why didn't I just do it before? None of that was real. But that is something that I definitely enjoyed revisiting, watching this film again. But what about you? What is your feedback?
Yeah, it was like a compression going on, like oversaturated experience of our lives, because even he had these moments, ups and downs within this time looping, and then he had these moments when he tried to kill himself, right? And then he was like try to end this cycle, and then in the next morning he woke up anyway, like this 6 o'clock happening, and then, oh no, I am here again. And it's interesting because every day I wake up, it's not really sure I would even wake up. Like, I go to sleep now, okay, but what would happen? It even would happen like I don't wake up again. So it's interesting perspective. Like, every day I go to sleep and leave all behind, and then hopefully I wake up and continue. Or I don't know. For me, it was like, hey, wait a second. What if I don't wake up in the next day, and I wanted to do these things? Oh, okay, tomorrow I do it. Nah, doesn't matter. I still have time. And in a way, when Phil tries to get to the girl Rita, and then he says to her that stay at my place, and she's like, oh, you are a nice guy, but tomorrow we can continue. And he's like, no, it must be today, and he's just pushing the limits. And then it was interesting to see that, bringing out from him that how much you can do in one day, basically, because you know that there is no tomorrow, and it's kind of pushing you to reach your limits, and even trying to push through your limits. And then he realizes that actually he is on his limitation when he's trying to look down to people, and then realizing that, wait, if I am just like this open, they are also changing. Like, this is kind of an a-hole in the beginning of the movie, or how his friends and work colleagues see him, like, prima donna. And then from that point, he tries to walk through their own perception and also his own. It was interesting to see, for me, for instance.
Yeah. One of the things I found interesting was, again, the analogy that applies to our own process is very clear in this movie. And one thing I wanted to talk with you here is that fact of, we go through all of these experiences in our lives. We go through our days. We wake up, and the rest of the day, who we are is really determined in one moment, right? That moment when we first wake up, we make a decision to either just fall into the patterns and go with thoughts and listen to our own reactions and emotions and let that carry us through the entire day. And then at the end of the night, maybe there's a few moments of, asking, well, what did I do today? Why did I do all of those things? What is the point here? What is this life about? And then we fall asleep and we repeat the next day. But there's also moment as well of, you can, in that moment when you wake up, decide that you're not going to be determined by your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings. You can decide to rather express and live yourself fully in every breath that you take, in every movement you make. You decide to do, rather than just following the trend. And I relate this to the film, where in the beginning, when this first starts happening, the first, you can't really quite tell how long it's been, how many days he's repeated, right? But you get the sense that he's been at this for a while, right? And in the beginning, he is, every day when he wakes up, he's still guided his mind, meaning he's still guided by his desires, his self-interest, his, judgments against other people. He's still playing that out and playing that out. Every day he wakes up in the same bed, and it's yesterday again, and everything's reset, and he's again faced with only himself. And you see that eventually it gets to a point in the film where, like you said, he kind of goes up and down. He goes into goes into depression, and then he goes, oh, I'm God, I'm not depressed. And then he goes into, I can do whatever I want. And then he goes into, oh, but I can't have anything that I want. And it's back and forth, up and down in his mind, until eventually it gets to, he lets go. And rather than trying to live out his anxieties or his fears or his desires, he gets to a point where he just becomes a creator. He becomes an expressive being that's just using what's happening to him as a vehicle to explore himself and better himself, not for any reason, not for fear or desire, but just for him. And that is when things change. That is that turning point in the film. And I think that's just beautiful, because that so perfectly demonstrates the cycles we go through, especially those who are walking the process are familiar with that cycle of time loops, corrections, and eventually, finally, you break through. But do you relate to that as well, or do you have a different perspective on that?
Yes, basically, when I first met about the process, like these simple principles, like I am always equal and one with what is here, including myself. And in my mind, I was always kind of a good thinker, like fast, good logic, everything. But I had to also realize that it's completely different, that I know things in my mind and also living it, like in physical reality, participating as. So I was a bit split first, because I felt like I understand the process, but I was surprised that it's not happening that fast as my mind goes. So after a while, I was kind of stuck. Like I broke my leg, I did not have money. I was laying on the ground, and I realized that I know so many things. I want so much, but I cannot grasp anything. And what shall I do? And then in that moment, I felt like I have to move myself. And literally my physical body was so tired and weak and ill and literally broken. And I realized that I have to move myself. And in that moment, I was like taking my own body and realizing that, wait, I was not even in my body where I was. So I decided that moment, like I move. And it was difficult. And I had so much resistances and also anxieties, like what will happen? I will fail. I will make consequences. I fear, but no, I just move. And then that moment I realized that the process is also about this application, what I know, I realize. And then that really helped me going through this resistance, going through this time looping, because I realized it will be the same day, as same reality, same friends, same myself, but now I have this decision to just move. And then it felt like in the movie, as you mentioned, that he also realized that I can just do stuff what I am, like expressing myself. And then it was so easy from that moment for him. It was, or at least I perceived so, because he was not obsessed getting the girl, or killing himself, or escaping responsibilities, but he was able to apply it. And it was interesting also. And
Yeah.
one moment when he kind of notices things, and the next day he remembers it. It felt like cheating against the others, because they are living the same day without they aware of. And then when I started to write this self-forgiveness, and then realizing what is in my mind, like these thoughts, feelings, emotions, I realized that this is actually my past coming back. And if I am reacting to my thoughts, hey, the moment is here. So as I started to map out my own mind and my own resistances, problems, I was able to apply this solution. And he was like this, in my opinion, that he was able to relate from yesterday. He learned how things work, and then we was able to use it for his own advantage. And for me, writing was like this, like remembering the next day what I could forgot, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. That the tool of writing and self-investigation, what it helps to do is it makes things workable. Instead of keeping everything inside, as an energy, as a thought in your, as a memory, you put it on paper, and it takes on a substance on its own, doesn't it? It becomes something you can physically look at, and it stays there as a reminder. It's like an anchor that can keep you here, keep you real and honest with yourself, because there it is, right? In your own words, you put it out. You can't lie. I guess you could try to lie to yourself still, but it's not going to help you, because you brought that into a dimension where you can physically start working with it, and that's so important. element of being able to see it in front of you so that you can't, you know, pretend it's not happening or suppress it or just turn it into a feeling or an energy and just, you know, you're never going to change, right? You're never going to bring that to the practical step of, you know, the self-forgiveness being taken to, okay, here's what's going on. Here's the pattern. I forgive myself because I realize that's not actually what I am. That's just a pattern that I've let take over me. So the next step, you know, you're not done there. The next step is, okay, well, how do I do that? How do I take responsibility for firstly creating this pattern? Why did I create the pattern? Is there something that I fear, that I'm wanting, that this pattern is going to give to me? And is that why I haven't changed? You know, these are the questions you start facing when you actually walk out into the world and you start applying yourself. You know, you might not necessarily know these things when you're writing, but after you've written it out, that becomes a part of you in your day-to-day walking. You start facing the day differently, because what's changed is you're not facing the day as the same things in your head. It's not in there anymore. It's out here. And you can start, you know, slowing down and say, wait a minute, I recognize you. I know this. This is like deja vu. I saw this before. I wrote about this. So I can change it. What if this time I do something else? This time I don't go into that pattern, right? And just like the character in the movie, slowly he learns so well, you know, how everything works. He becomes a master in the entire town, right? So I think that is something that we can relate to as well. That point of having that process of writing, having a tool, it is our way of making it real, making it so that it is kind of like our own personal Groundhog Day, where it's the same things that keep coming up, but we don't have them.
Yes, and also even if I lie to myself, if I am pushing this point of being honest with myself, I will know and I will realize that, hey, wait, I tried to cheat on myself, but actually it is me who I cheat. So I will be the consequence of my own lying to myself. And for instance, if I get along with someone and I lie to myself that she's cool, she's really cool, I like her, and then I marry her, and then after years I would realize that I did lie to myself for a reason, and then I facing the moment like, oh yeah, I lied to myself and this is my consequence. So
Yes.
it's not necessary to just accept myself as lying to myself. And also when I realized that I didn't think that I am that dishonest before I started to write about myself. Like I had the diary about many kind of experiences, journeys, but when I started to focus on myself, my honesty, everything changed. It's like the greatest power I found when I am applying self-honesty with self-forgiveness, because it's really a game changer, so to speak.
Yes, the ultimate game changer, I would say. Often I relate process to being like, you know, when you're on a computer and things start freezing up and working right, and you do what? You do Control-Alt-Delete, and you bring up your task managers, and you see, okay, what's going on? What's this running? This shouldn't be here. This shouldn't be. This is a virus. I don't know what this is. I never installed this. And you get to one by one look at all the things that are going on inside of you that are running in the background all day that you don't question, but eventually leads to these problems in your life. And process is kind of like that debugging tool. The process is like your way of looking at all of those scripts that we're subconsciously and having an influence on us that we don't question, that we just assume, oh, that's just who I am, right? But when you bring up the tools and you look at it, but wait, who I am is nothing but a collection of patterns and thoughts and data, and they can be changed and in some cases deleted. So what does that say? I think I am. Is that so permanent? Is that real? If I can change and alter all of that, so doesn't that mean I create myself in every moment? And
Yes.
that is an empowering thing, and also scary, right? Because it means you can't lie anymore to yourself. You can manipulate yourself, surely, and suppress yourself and think you can get away with it. But just like the character in the film, you're always going to reset back to yourself. The same issues will just come back into your life, sometimes even worse. Will you take full responsibility? And for that, I am definitely grateful that such a tool exists, that there is this support of people that are walking this process, and that you are not alone. You don't have to feel crazy like, you know, this character did. You know, he's alone facing all of this. Nobody can relate to what he's doing. But there's this community of people that are going through our own personal Groundhog Days alone, but together. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's why we try to share ourselves, our process, or like this point to connect and relate, because in a way everyone has the same, like this Groundhog Day, because every day we wake up and then going to sleep, and then it's up to us what we bring out from ourselves, and also to realize that it is not just ourselves what are in the game, so to speak, which is not a game, because there are others and there are consequences of my actions. So I can also investigate what I do, what will be the consequence for others, and what would be the best, for instance, for me or for others. That was also for me the tool, and the relation when he went from like this homeless guy was begging, and then one day he gives him food and starts to interact with him, and then he actually dies, and then he tries to push more, like help him more, and then he's realizing that how much he can do. And then also at the part of the end, I really enjoyed that when he's like in tight schedule, that no, I have errands to run, and then we realize that he's so busy and how much he can do in short time, like catching the kid and then the old ladies. It's like a habit of, yeah, sort of, yes. And it's just basically accumulating his own attitude and starting point and applying what he learned from the previous day. And it's really like a process symbolism also.
Yeah, that's a really great point you brought up, and that reminds me of something that I saw within that, which is it's interesting that they actually take on more responsibilities, right? When he starts letting go of his desire to chase the girl, and he stops, you know, being so mystical and judgmental about other people, he starts challenging his comfort zones. He starts reaching out and, you know, interacting with people he used to judge. And even the town, in the beginning of the film, you see him complaining about having to go to this little town that he hates and he wants to leave as soon as possible. But he actually, in a way, he starts to embrace the town. He embraces the people and what's going on, and he learns about himself. And like you said, he takes on more and more responsibilities to a point where it's like, go, go, go. I have things to do. Well, I'm responsible for this. I got to save this kid's life. I got to help this old man. I got to do this, this, this. And it's interesting because oftentimes I can relate to in a part of my life where I felt so trapped and I hated waking up in the morning because I knew I had all these judgments about the day. I was going to go to the office that I hate, in this town that I hate, and the food that I hate, and the people I hate, and the job I just can't stand, and it's going to be the same like it was before. I just wanted to change. But the more I had that mentality, the more difficult it was to wake up in the morning, the more difficult it was to unwind and relax when I got home. That just got worse and worse and worse until I kind of did what the main character did. I started to allow myself to embrace the situation, right? Okay, I can't change this. This is certainly beyond my ability to change, but I can change myself. And so I started to be more open to my coworkers, have conversations with my bosses to understand what they needed and why they do certain things, and get better at my job and get better at, managing my own stress and, learning how to work with other people, make sure things are smooth, not only for the company, but also for me. And that led to the most incredible transformation where I started with absolutely hating to getting to a position where I was, moving up in the company, and having an environment where actually I enjoyed going to work, because I felt I was no longer the victim, because I stopped victimizing myself. So I think that was a really cool element that the film shows, that part of, as you're willing to take on more responsibility and engage more with your life and take on more of your self-honesty, the more rapid your change happens, not only inside, but your outside world will change to reflect that.
Yeah, definitely. I can only just relate, because when I started to not to focus my own mind, my own problems, my own issues, my own desires, oh yeah, I had a lot of desires, like what I want to be or become or have. But in the moment I was able to let it go, like this moment when I realized that I can die in any moment, any day, and certainly I will do. So what if I just let it go? But how could I let this mind construct let go? So that's why I process and writing, and then I forgive myself the moment to just let everything go and be here and embrace what is here. And I started to understand my own mind, my own beingness, my own characters, so to speak. And then in that moment also I was able to understand more from my own surroundings, and I was able to notice how things work, how others operate, so to speak. And that was interesting, like relation to the movie. Like the Phil starts to know more about the city and the events. He becomes aware, and then he realizes that, hey, I know this will happen, and I can be responsible for the guy to catch, or the ladies. So the more I know, the more I can take responsibility for, and the more I can express myself in relation to this responsibility I take, and then the more I change. And then that really brings you out from the time looping, so to speak, because you move, you change your reality, and then it's an interesting part. And I was always avoiding responsibility, and then I realized that responsibility equals awareness, and I was always wanting to know more, and then knowing more means I can express more, so to speak. It was interesting. And also I can relate from another movie for a moment, like in the Matrix, like don't think you are, but know you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more I know myself, the less I have to think about myself and how I could approach things, but I can just live. And then in the beginning of the process, it was really difficult. But once I got hooked into this physical reference, like I am here, it was so obvious when I was being dishonest, or flying away, or lying to myself, or trying to go back into my mind where everything is easy, but it's not real actually, because I am not here. So it was a good relation for me also to this movie.
Yeah, definitely. And for those who haven't seen this film, I do recommend checking it out. It's very humorous, very well done, and I'm sure a lot of us will be able to relate to the main character, because it's taking the life of a normal human being with regular wants and desires and fears and resistances, and making that person face it constantly, one day after another, exactly the same, until they change. And that's something that we can all really relate to. So again, those who haven't seen it, I'm just checking it out. It's Groundhog Day. It stars Bill Murray. We are getting kind of close to the end of our session, but I did want to open up one more thing with you today, which is, what advice would you give to people who feel like they might be stuck, feel like every day is the same, and they just want to change, but they feel maybe powerless, or they feel like they're a victim? Do you have anything that you can draw from the film or from your own personal process that may be relevant?
Yeah, definitely. Like start questioning, and even usually we do like going outside with these questions, like question things around me, why this is happening to me, why she does not love me, why I have so less money, or things like this. But also it can be applied to myself, like why I like these things, why I resist doing that. So questioning for me was the starting point, like questioning everything basically, even how I operate, even how I question myself or things was really supportive. And also what we mentioned, like start writing, like writing down my own thought patterns, because then I can realize that basically it's always the same. It can always relate to several points from my life within which I am actually time looping. Then I also can ask questions about it. Why I ended up like this? Why I hate that guy every day I see him? What is my problem? Or what would be his own issue? How he ended up like this? So for me, it's definitely questioning and writing. And also there is this online course, Desteni I Process Lite, which is about the basic tools of writing and self-forgiveness and this concepts of self-honesty and then regular writing. And there is a buddy assigned to you who is also experienced with the process, facing oneself and walking through these resistances, dishonesties. And it's free and it's really cool with these artworks, drawings, and I suggest to check it out and start applying, because it's about accumulation, that I do every day a little and then it will accumulate into something what will be manifested as myself, and then I can apply and share, and it is really cool.
Yeah, that's, I can't add more to that. That's just perfect. If else, I would say for those who feel that they are in such a situation or having thoughts of, oh my God, you know, what's the point? Every day is the same. Nothing's changing. What I do, nothing's getting better. Why bother? If you're having these kinds of thoughts, I went the hard way with this. I went without writing, without using the tools, and I let things get to a point where it got so bad. I had no choice but to go back to what would work, which is getting honest with myself and writing and taking my life back into my own hands, right? Because it was very easy to just all of that, especially if it's been repeating for a while, you know, this feeling or these thoughts of, I can't change my life, or everything's always going to be this way. I'm just stuck here. Every time you let that thought happen inside of you, every time you listen to it, it becomes more than you. So you are going to have a more and more difficult time, and eventually all of that will become what we know of as a possession, where it really is like all of that energy and frustration will take over to such an extent where you won't even see anything. You'll just kind of, it'll just come through you, and it'll have consequences in your life. The way that you speak to people, the way that you might push people away, that might be you, the way that you isolate yourself, or maybe the way that you might no longer care about your job or the quality of your job because you blame the job. All of these will have a effect on you. And so I do recommend to not let that continue, to support yourself, reach out to those who are walking this process, because we are here, we have this community of people that are walking this alone but together. So also I would recommend for those who do feel stuck or powerless, realize that to a certain extent we do have to be honest with the fact that we can't change everything. There are things right now that are out of control immediately. We have to survive. We have to do certain things we don't like, and that's what's here right now. Don't personalize that, and don't judge yourself and blame yourself. We're all here together facing that same point of having to do things we don't want to do for survival at the moment. So don't hold that against yourself. Find ways to be at peace with what you have, even if that might not be much. Find ways to embrace where you are, knowing it's not fair, knowing that it's messed up, knowing that this isn't a good place to be, but this is where you are. and you can only start from where you are, not anywhere else in your head. That was the path I was able to walk out of my life, out of my deepest, darkest times, embracing what was here with the tools, reaching out again, and re-engaging with my. So I hope that is supportive for any of you out there that is having that kind of experience. Do you have anything else to add to that, my co-host?
No, that's exactly I was also referring to, and also I only would add that I've got also assistance from the Desteni forum when I felt like I needed to reach out and ask questions, and there were people who supported me without anything, just unconditionally being here and then showing me the door and then encouraging me to walk through, and then you can do it and you have to walk it because it is yourself, and then it's possible. And that was really supporting. Even just when seeing examples others are walking, it's really cool, like sharing blogs and vlogs, and then seeing that each of us are walking similar path in the different individual situations, but the same.
Right.
All right. Thanks for being here, Joe. It was amazing discussion, and thanks everyone who was watching and listening. And then next week we will return with another movie hangout.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.